slow, live it up, watching time go. Planning moves, things solid to this cheat code. Get your money, make it big, fuck being broke. Get your money, make it big, fuck being broke. Live slow, live it up, watching time go. Making moves, things solid to this cheat code. Get your money, make it big, fuck being broke. Get your money, make it big, fuck being broke. This how it is, the mission's Benjamins. And fuck the drama and the bullshit, we ain't little kids. My circle small, but my riders heart, they never quit. Get your money, keep it gangsta, solid, straight legit. Never switch like the real ones that die for this. It's fucked up, but this is truly how it is. I hope you're ready if you're picking this like full of sin. No turning back, I represent my Vario to the end. Fuck the fakes and the snakes and everyone that hates. I'm not phased, I won't break, bitch, I'll never.
You are now watching M.O.D Entertainment.
What's good, G-Life? This right here is California, Cali. Now, California, obviously being infamous for several hundred gangs, thousands even maybe. We have different names that get often brought up, due to, whether the neighborhood names themselves after the park, after the projects, after the streets, and etc., stuff like that. One of the names that often get used also is the name of apartment plexes, locations like that, with the term garden in it. Not garden as in like, flowers and you're growing a garden, but more of that's what they named the location. And there's several neighborhoods that use this, name. And we'll be discussing them right here. So with no further ado, let's get into it. And now starting off with the first one, we actually have to make our way to the San Fernando Valley, 818 all day, baby. My hometown, to the area actually of Sylmar. Sylmar is home to one of these garden neighborhoods, which is known as the Vario AGLS. AGLS translating to Vario Astoria Garden Locos. Astoria Garden Locos is already a neighborhood that's been established right here in Sylmar. Although Sanford is the, the more larger gang, the more recognizable neighborhood. It's not the only neighborhood within those areas. You do have neighborhoods like Astoria, you know what I mean? And they tend to have feud, conflict, heavy animosity between the two groups, obviously. The Astoria Gardens neighborhood being the lot more smaller neighborhood, it was established roughly around the 70s, 80s when this neighborhood was established. A very small neighborhood, you know what I mean? I was told at least only roughly about 60 to 80 members. So, not as large as some of these other gangs around the area. And that's why you don't see them up as much as like you do like, Sanford and everything that has members in the thousands. But don't get it twisted. The Astoria Gardens neighborhood is a legit neighborhood that has been holding it down right there for theirs. They ain't no chumps. You know what I mean? Even though they, they're outnumbered, they still have, held their own and their presence within the area of Sylmar. Because their territory is everything that's located where the Astoria Garden apartment plexes are at, because that is why their neighborhood is known as Astoria Gardens, because that's the name of the apartment plexes that are right there on Astoria and Foothill. You know what I mean? Everything that's by close to Polk Street and Bromont Avenue. So that right there is what's considered their territory, really close to Sylmar High School, obviously, but that is what's known as the Vario Astoria Gardens territory. Obviously it overlaps, with, Sanford's territory. You can see why there's heavy animosity. But nonetheless, homie, this neighborhood has been right here holding it down and putting it down for theirs. You know what I mean? These guys, suckers. Even though they're outnumbered, they still continue to represent theirs and still continue to be active and functioning right there and putting theirs on the map. And now as we make our way to the area that is known as the South Side of Los Angeles, home to many neighborhoods. And one of the neighborhoods, we actually have to make our way to the area of Bell Gardens. Bell Gardens is located on the south side. It is the city near Bell, Maywood, Downey, Pico Rivera, cities like that. Pretty big city. And, home to several gangs. And one of them being a Gardens neighborhood, which is known as the BGLS. BGLS standing for Bell Garden Locals, obviously, naming themselves after the city of Bell Garden. Bell Garden Locals is the largest Hispanic neighborhood within Bell Gardens. The originators, at one point I remember Bell Gardens being the only neighborhood in Bell Gardens. It was roughly started around the 70s when this neighborhood was established. Bell Garden Locals, dominant neighborhood, with members in the hundreds. And you can find them spread out through all of Bell Gardens. You know what I'm saying? From Eastern to Florence, on Gage, where the DMV's at, where the Bell Gardens DMV's at, throughout those back streets is, one of their, main domain dojos, headquarters, and all that. Because literally you can find these guys from everywhere, from all the parks, from the Loveland Park to the Forest Park. You can just find the Bell Garden locals everywhere. You know what I'm saying? They are the largest and the most dominant neighborhood within the city of Bell Gardens. And those are just facts. You know what I'm saying? I only come and tell you how it is. Hate it or love it, it is what it is. Them being the old school neighborhood, give law enforcement a hard time. And these guys made the news, several times. You know what I mean? Because Bell Gardens is a city that is very active. It cracks because you have so many different gangs within that city, and they all tend not to get along with each other. You know what I mean? So you have, heavy conflicts right there, because you have up to, just in the city of Bell Gardens alone, you have up to 13, 14 gangs. You know what I mean? And that's just gangs. We're not even adding the crews that are around and all of that other shit. You know what I mean? So you can only imagine. It definitely crashed right here in the city of Bell Gardens. But yeah, home to one of these garden neighborhoods right here, the BGLS. Now, as we slide on through to the area that is known as East LA, obviously being notorious area, home of a lot of gangs. You know what I mean? Home to the Maravillas, Little Valley, King Cobras, Indiana Dukes, and several other sets. And in this area, amongst all those sets, you do have a Gardens neighborhood, which is known as the Vario WG. WG translating to Vario Winter Gardens. Yes, Vario Winter Gardens is a real neighborhood, and not to be confused with the Winter Street neighborhood that used to be in the east side, but is no longer an active neighborhood. Winter Street and Winter Gardens are two whole different neighborhoods. You know what I mean? The Winter Gardens neighborhood is... Now, they've been around since the 60s, at least from what I was told, and the territory consists of everything that's from Olympic to Atlantic, and then Atlantic to Arizona, and then Arizona to where the 5 freeway's at. So everything that's in the middle is what's considered the Winter Gardens neighborhood, and obviously named after the the apartment complexes right here. And do tend to feud with Maravillas because obviously East LA is home to the Maravilla neighborhoods, and them just being right here slap within the the zone of Maravillas. You can understand why there's going to be heavy conflict in animosity between both groups. But the Winter Gardens neighborhood, at least from what I was told, is more than 100 members. So it's an average sized neighborhood, and still an active one, and continue to still represent theirs and hold it down for theirs in the Winter Garden gang. Now, to find another Gardens neighborhood, we actually have to slide on through to the area that is known as Calexico. The Imperial Valley, and the area of Calexico is known to be home of several neighborhoods. Despite what individuals want to say, these areas crack too. You know what I mean? They got homeboys, throughout these areas. And one of the, the areas where they have homeboys is actually located right here in the Kennedy Gardens. Yes, Kennedy Gardens is home to a lot of neighborhoods. Despite what individuals want to say and be like, nah, there's no gangs right there, and whoop-de-wah. Believe it or not, there's neighborhoods, you know what I mean? That's just how it is. Hate it or love it, I never come to wolf it, speculate or make up. They're a real neighborhood, and they're known as the KGS. KGS translating to Vario Kennedy Gardens Surenos. A real legit set right here in Calexico that has already been an active neighborhood for quite some time. You know what I mean? At least from what I was told, 80s, early 90s when this neighborhood was established. And they still continue to be established right there in the Kennedy Gardens, you know what I mean? They have always been a small gang though, at least from what I was told, that they're roughly about 40 to 50 members. So, one of the more smaller gangs, when we're talking about homeboys. But nonetheless, a real neighborhood right here holding it down for the Imperial Valley and the Calexico area, and still continue to put theirs on the map. Now, for the next garden neighborhood, we actually have to travel to the area of Southgate. Southgate is home to one of these garden neighborhoods, and the neighborhood is known as the Vario GVLS. Vario GVLS standing for Garden View Locals. Garden View Locals is one of, Southgate's, original, dominant neighborhoods in this area. It is large, you know what I mean? It definitely has a large amount of territory, and it's been right here already for a cool minute in the area of Southgate, you know what I mean? Now, Their territory is everything that consists from Long Beach Boulevard to Southern Avenue to State all the way to Adamore Avenue. So everything that's in the middle is considered their barrio. So that's throughout Madison, that's throughout Gate Avenue, that's throughout Cypress Avenue, Evergreen Avenue, and of course, you know, obviously they're the heart of their hood on Garden View. You know what I mean? Garden View Street. You know, Garden View and Firestone is the heart of their hood, their domain, their dojo. That's where it gets on and popping. You know what I mean? It's a decent size of territory, and I was told at least that this is roughly more than 100 members to this neighborhood. So not too big, not too small, but you know, average size. But for this area, it's probably you know, one of the largest neighborhoods in this area. You know, these guys ain't playing. Already been right here for a cool minute and continue to still be representing for theirs. You know what I mean? And the Garden View locals as that GVLS right here in Southgate. Another neighborhood that we have, for this one, we actually have to head down to the area of San Diego. San Diego is home to one of these garden neighborhoods. As a matter of fact, an old barrio, you know, of theirs, which is known as the Vario EGLC. That stands for Eden Garden La Colonia. Eden Gardens is already one of, you know, a neighborhood that often gets forgotten about, you know what I mean? But it already has, you know, old roots, at least from what I was told, that this barrio was around since the 40s, 50s, in the area that is known as Solona Beach in San Diego, in the Eden Gardens, La Colonia. You know, back then this was, you know, what it looks like now and what it was then is two different things, you know what I mean? And this is where a lot of immigrant families would work and, you know, live at. You know, it was pretty rough back then, you know what I mean? And, you know, a lot of racism going on, banded together, formed their neighborhood to protect themselves, you know, the Eden Garden, La Colonia. And it has no connections to the rest of the Colonia barrios. I'll be making a video about those coming soon because there's a lot of Colonia barrios. And this happens to be one of them, but like I said, they're not connected. You know, that's just the way it is. But the Eden Gardens is well known right here. You know, the EGLC barrio, and still putting theirs on the map and holding it down for the Eden Garden La Colonia. Now, another neighborhood that you have that's a garden neighborhood that often people forget. Now, there's a lot of neighborhoods that claim this area. You know what I mean? This area has up to, I don't know, maybe like about 15 gangs in it, which is in the area of Orange County. To be more specific, the area that is known as Garden Grove. And like I said, Garden Grove is home to a lot of barrios. But when people think about Vario Garden Grove, the one neighborhood that always comes to mind first is obviously the oldest and the largest within the area, which is known as the Vario Garden Grove Hard Times. Vario Garden Grove Hard Times, the GG. You know, people think that sometimes that the neighborhoods are two different neighborhoods, but no, it's the same barrio. You know what I mean? You can see it up as Garden Grove, or you can see it up as Hard Times. You know what I mean? It is the oldest and the largest within this area. The main heart of their hood, their domain, is right there on Buena Street and Sunswept Street. That's where you can find them, the heart of their hood, their domain, their dojo. And like I said, this is roughly up to a few hundred members to this barrio. So when we're talking about in size, I'm talking about it's the largest. And although you do have several other gangs that claim the area of Garden Grove and is written like that, you know, that is not like actually in the title of their name. You know, like these guys, you know, Garden Grove is significant to their name. It's almost like it's attached to theirs. You know what I mean? When people, you know, hear about the Garden Grove area, this is the barrio that, you know, often comes into mind. You know what I mean? Or what people associate the Garden Grove area to. With no disrespect to the other barrios, you know what I mean? It's just that, you know, these are the originators out of this area. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, Garden Grove is an area that definitely cracks just because you got so many different barrios within the area. So, you know, when you get so many different hoods in one area, you know, flexing their egos, you're going to get conflicts. That's just the way it is. But that's what's up with the barrio Garden Grove Hard Times, holding it down for theirs right there and representing out of the area of Orange County. Another barrio that's a garden neighborhood. Now this one being a little bit different because it's in the title of the name, but often it gets forgotten about. You know what I mean? People tend to leave it out when we're talking about gardens, but it, you know, you do see it in their tattoos, their graffiti, and attached to their name. Not all the time, but you know, you do see it. You know, it does occur, which is the Vario Jardin 13 Jardin. The Vario Jardin is one of, you know, Southeast old barrios. You know what I mean? These guys, you know, were large, old, been putting it down right here in this area, you know what I mean, since the 30s, 40s when this neighborhood was established. The Jardin barrio is significant, you know, within this area and with the gang culture, you know what I mean? Like, people heard about this barrio, you know. These guys ain't no suckers, homie. They were not, they don't have a large presence as they once had, but nonetheless, they're still there, and well represented and recognized. And the Jardin is known as the Hawaiian Gardens. Hawaiian Gardens, obviously named after the apartment complexes. This is how they got their name, the Gardens. That's why you see the Gardens or Garden Boys, or Hawaiian Gardens. But that is the reason for it. And their territory is everything that's from Whittier Boulevard, all the way to Paramount, going to Beverly, and Beverly, traveling all the way to where the riverbed's at. Everything that's close to the Rio Hyundai Park is considered their barrio. So throughout Beverly Road, throughout Pine Street, throughout Oak Street, throughout Grape Street, Fair Street, Edna Street, St. Louis, all that is what's considered their territory. You know what I mean? Their domain, their dojo, where they get on and cracking, you know what I mean? Right there close to the Montebello Garden Elementary School. It's what's known as the Jardin, neighborhood. And like I said, these guys ain't no suckers, homie. They've been right here doing it. And, one of, this Southeast, recognized barrios, you know what I mean? And continue to still be representing for theirs and the Jardin Gardens and still putting theirs on the map. Another well-known garden neighborhood, probably, when people think about garden neighborhoods, this is probably the first one that comes up to mind, due to the whole lore of their barrio and everything that comes with it, which is known as the Vario HG translating to Vario Hawaiian Gardens. Vario Hawaiian Gardens is a well-known neighborhood in the southeast, in the area of Hawaiian Gardens. As a matter of fact, they pretty much control all of Hawaiian Gardens. You can find these guys established, throughout Hawaiian Gardens. One of their pioneers, right there on Bloomfield Avenue, all the way to Centralia Street. Centralia Street, their territory still extends all the way to where the Coyote Creek's at. The Coyote Creek's at to 226th Street and all the way to Pioneer Boulevard. So everything that's in the middle is considered their barrio. Throughout Carson Street, throughout 215th Street, by the Bloomfield Park. You know what I mean? All of that throughout Norwalk Boulevard. It's all what's considered their barrio, a large chunk of territory. Like I said, these guys have just been there, for a cool minute in putting theirs on the map. Like I said, these guys, are a well-known pioneer neighborhood, significant for its members, of this barrio. For those who know the story, you know what I mean? It's out there. So yeah, these guys are well represented and continue to still hold it down for the Hawaiian Gardens gang. Like, the law enforcement has thrown everything at the kitchen sink at these guys, to try to slow them down. Seems like, it's not working, because these guys are still in the, larger than they once were, and continue to still be right here holding it down for the Hawaiian Gardens. And these guys are notorious and continue to still put theirs on the map. Another one of these garden neighborhoods that you have, it is located right here in Northern California. You know what I mean? In the area of Hayward, what is known as the South Garden area. You know what I mean? And that is the Vario SG, known as the Vario South Gardens Sur 13. Vario South Gardens SG. Well-known upstate Sureño neighborhood. At least in this area, is probably the largest within the upstate homies, because I was told that this neighborhood is roughly up to 60 to 70 members, from what I was told. Spread out throughout the whole entire area of Northern California, not just right here, but to several other locations. The South Garden neighborhood is definitely a barrio that you hear about when it comes to upstate homies. And like I said, I'm never here to falsify, make up, and you can believe what you want, hate it or love it. It is what it is. These are upstate homies that really do hold it down. You know what I'm saying? And they had been established here since the 90s, early 90s, when this neighborhood was established, and it spread and grew in size pretty rapidly. You know what I mean? And even though we're not talking about like a large amount of numbers, like when it comes to like like southern homeboy neighborhoods. But for it being Northern California in this area, I mean, it is a large amount. You know what I mean? At least when it comes to that. But that's what's up with the